We can't cover the history of applied psychology without covering the Hawthorne studies of the 1930s. Although the studies were published in the 1930s, they actually began in 1924. Two researchers conducted experiments at the Western Electric Company's Hawthorne plant in northern Illinois. This is a picture of some of the buildings on the Hawthorne campus. Telephone parts were made at this company at the time. And if you'd like to watch a video about the Hawthorne studies, you can click on the image. At the time, these two gentlemen didn't realize it, but their studies would change the way that employees are managed. Today, our ideas about empowerment and leadership and motivation are all based on the results, essentially, of these early studies. Initially, the two believed that they could change the lighting in the buildings to change productivity. They tried to identify the optimum level of lighting for maximum productivity. They also looked at pay schedules, how often people were paid. They looked at other incentives for simpler behaviors like meeting a specific quota. And they looked at employee breaks, specifically the length of time that employees were allowed to take a break from their work. To test their predictions, they worked with a small group of employees. They asked several of them to work inside of a room for several weeks while they manipulated different things like their pay schedule, the rewards, the length of their employee breaks. To their surprise, lighting had very little to do with productivity. When they increased illumination, productivity went up. When they decreased illumination, productivity went up. No matter what they did, it seemed like performance improved. Two lessons emerged from these initial studies: the experimenter effect and the social effect. These two effects are things that we still pay attention to today when conducting our own research. The experimenter effect occurred because employees interpreted any change to the work environment to be a sign that the organization cared. It didn't matter if the change made it more difficult for them to do their work. They still interpreted the action as care and concern from the employer. These employees had never been asked about their attitudes, had never been really paid attention to, like Mayo and Roethlisberger were paying attention to them. The experimenter effect, in other words, is a change in participants' behavior because of the experimenter. Because the experimenters were paying attention to the workers, they felt special. They felt good. This internal state was the reason for their increase in productivity, not necessarily the changes in the environment. They also found evidence of what we call a social effect, when the social environment within an experiment impacts the participants' behavior. Because the two researchers worked so closely with the employees at the Hawthorne plant, they developed positive relationships with them. This positivity, this camaraderie that developed between the researchers and the workers also contributed to the workers' increased productivity. In essence, they were being managed by these two researchers as opposed to their traditional manager, who likely took on a more theory X pessimistic view of employee behavior. You will likely be exposed to these studies again in some of your other classes. They were crucial to the expansion of applied psychology. It was already a subfield, but it needed that extra push to make it even more popular and to reach the masses. When psychologists began applying psychology to business and helping business leaders make more money, improve organizational performance, when that happened, when that leap happened, applied psychology exploded into what we have today. Thank you for joining me this week as we learn about my favorite topic, the history of applied psychology. Next week, we're going to learn about a type of psychology that many of you are probably not familiar with, Gestalt psychology. If you have any interest in art or marketing, this subfield, this perspective, might be of interest to you.